All right, we're in it. We're live. Like as we start, first thought is
Mhm.
I don't know like however long this goes on, but I might need one of you to take over hosting duties at some point, at least because I hear and feel I am very hoarse from yesterday still. So
Mhm.
didn't really think about that before I went live here, but it's gonna be a struggle with that one. So.
Mhm.
But other than that, great weekend of college basketball. Fun, interesting day of football. So fun weekend, and we get to recap some of the big stories of the
Fun,
night.
interesting, fun Mike Woodson choke today.
Oh my god!
They ran maybe the worst set you'll ever see to win the game against Maryland today. If you did not see it, I encourage you to find it because it was all-time levels of terrible. So,
The best part of that was Goody like making him go fucking shake hands after the game.
yeah,
He just tried to
what a
walk off,
mess.
and of all people,
Yeah.
Goody's like, "No, you need to go shake his hand." Um, I'm gonna get these tweeted out and everything, and let people know we are live, and then we can get into the games. Um, but yeah, other than that, any other opening thoughts before we get into the games?
Just another crazy weekend of college basketball. Lots of good upset, good games, some rock fights, which we'll get into. Um, but yeah, great weekend college ball.
Never disappoints. And now people are starting to I mean today or yesterday was supposed to be pretty easy Bama game, was not. And
Mm.
then now people are now starting to tweet out I think Mark Titus started tweeting out the home stretch here for Bama in conference play. It's brutal. So I was like, holy smokes, that's a tough one. So should have some more fun weekends.
I mean, the SEC, other than like Auburn's obviously at the top right now, and that's fun.
It's
But
the
like,
quad one conference. Yeah.
there's a lot of. I mean, it's as crazy as we thought it was going to be when you look, because like you have Ole Miss, for example, like they just took out Bama last week, and now they've turned around and lost 3 games in a row. Immediately after that, it's like bang, bang, bang. Season can flip on you quick. I mean, Texas got a monumental win for their resume yesterday. They needed that one bad, and the fashion in which they did it. Yeah, that's the other thing. Since going to the game yesterday and being out, kind of getting ready a lot of the day, some of these games I wasn't able to like. I watched some of Kansas Houston, but obviously once our game started, I was
Mhm.
dialed out. So I know there's a lot of chaos in the end of that one. So when we get to that one, I'll need you guys to kind of carry it through there. But plenty. That sounded like some anger, Matt.
It was yeah, it's just kind of like incomprehensible how that game ended and just a game Kansas had to have, just threw it away literally.
Yeah, like I said, I did not get to watch like the down the stretch and everything. So that'll probably be the second game we talk about. So we'll certainly, like I said, I'll give you guys the floor to kind of
Mhm.
get more in depth with that one. But we got 10 people tuned in. Thank you, and why not get it started? Noah, shout out! What a weekend of college hoops! Hell yeah! Thank you for watching on YouTube too. Um, but all right, let's start with obviously the one I want to talk about, and it's fun when the game I want to talk about is also the biggest game of the day. So I don't have to feel like I'm being a sunshine pumper to be like, yeah, this is what we're talking about first. But Auburn 53, Tennessee 51. Just, I guess, good game. Can we say good game? Like, is that okay to say? Like, competitive
Yeah, I
game.
would say it was a good game, all things considered.
Yeah,
I know it's not the
I'm.
most aesthetically pleasing game. That's just how Tennessee wants to play. But yeah, I mean, good game, all things considered. Came down to
Throw,
final few possessions, and those teams
mhm.
were playing out of their minds hard. Like they were Tennessee, especially. They, I mean, that's not shooting the ball as good as it gets for them, but defensively, they were really on their game. And credit to Auburn, they were as well.
Tennessee, every fucking time we played Tennessee, they, to their credit, they put us in an absolute fucking blender. It doesn't matter what the year is, what the team is, where it's at, whether it's in Knoxville or Auburn. Like they're gonna give their best shot, and that's a credit to Rick Barnes with all the turnover. It's obviously he's confident in his ability to stop whatever Bruce is putting out there, because this is did not look like the same Auburn team we've seen all year. But there's something to be said about when you're proving you're the elite teams and you're the teams that can win a national championship. There's something about winning a game like this in a different style. Like they dragged us into their style of game that they wanted to play and really got it into the mud. And for Auburn to be able to pull that one out through a lot of adversity. I mean, Janai, like he returned yesterday. There was a lot of question marks whether he was even going to play. He came back, and I mean, there was definitely some rust. Like he missed. I think what did he finish from the field? Let me check. 7 for 19. So like not his most efficient day by any means, but he's
No
still
one
like
had an efficient day in that game,
no.
really. It
No,
was,
that was a
especially, on anyone who's taking volume shots. Yeah, it was not an efficient game for anyone.
I mean, we didn't get a single field goal from Chad Baker, Mazzara, or Denver Jones, for example, and that's like two of our elite players on offense, and not a single make from the field between those guys. And I mean, there's a lot of adversity. There was a situation with Ja'Kai Howard where him and Bruce got into it on the bench, and Bruce sent him to the locker room, just kicked him out of there basically.
mhm.
And it was, but like I said, there's really something to be said about this wasn't like I saw a tweet earlier. It said Auburn can win a game in the 90s, Auburn can win a game in the 80s, 70s, 60s, 50s. It doesn't matter. It's when you show you can win these different style games, like even when it's not your day, because it wasn't our day by any means. I mean, I looked at William Luke and I was like, we really don't deserve to win this game, and I stand by it. We didn't play our game. Tennessee
Mhm.
started knocking down some shots at the end. It seemed like the momentum was swinging their way, and it's
Yeah, and they
when
got a
you see,
great look to Zakai at the end. Um,
yeah,
that one nearly went down.
definitely some question. It's funny. So at the game, and you guys can tell me from a
Mhm.
different perspective, I felt like the refs were calling too much, especially at the start of the second half. It was kind of crazy, but it seemed like a lot of the discourse on Twitter was they weren't calling enough. So obviously, I guess in person and from with my fan hat on, I had a different perspective on how that went down. But how did you guys view that situation on TV? Because the officiating was certainly a discussion after this one.
Yeah, it was a very ugly game to start. I mean, I looked up at the score and it was like single digits with like 10 minutes left in the game or first half. And yeah, I mean, Tennessee, they try to drag you down and play garbage basketball a lot of the time. Um, but yeah, I mean, when that sort of stuff happens, refs should maybe, if there's like a physical play, one or two physical plays they need to call, get control of the game early and then let more free, causes the game to free up a little bit more than what it did. It's just an all around kind of grind out game, especially when on the game, Tennessee and Auburn were a combined seven for 42 from three.
My goodness. Yeah, it was. I mean, we made three pointers the entire
Mhm,
game, and
mhm,
Chennai made one early on in the first
mhm,
half, and then uh, other than that, it was nothing till Miles Kelly hit those two big ones
Mhm.
late, which, I mean, absolute to Miles Kelly. Today's his birthday, by the way. Uh, saw him last night at an establishment, and they did like a big announcement over the thing that it was his birthday. And, like, watched the Field of 68 interview and saw it was his birthday too. So, shout out to him for that. What a performance on his birthday. Or I guess the night before his birthday to get that. Just two absolutely monumental 3 pointers, especially that last one in the corner. Because Janai goes to the bucket, had a good look, got blocked, and then Janai is able to get the rebound. And it's like the swing of emotions because, I mean, for him to, I mean, that would have tied it if Janai hits it, misses, gets the rebound, and has the
Great
wherewithal to kick
pass.
it
I
out.
mean, pass of
Yeah,
the game. Yeah.
yeah, to have the wherewithal to kick it out to Miles there in the corner when you're getting
Mhm.
absolutely swarmed under the bucket and get an offensive rebound like that, it was incredible. I mean, like I said, it was an ugly game. It wasn't fun by any means, but there's something to be said about when you prove that you don't have to play your style of
Mhm.
basketball and how you want to play, and you can pull out a win regardless. It's extraordinarily satisfying, and I know we're here to talk about like obviously the national picture and all the teams, but man, I'm just so excited and proud of this team and proud to be a fan for that, man. That one meant a lot, and that was the highest ranked matchup in the history of Neville Arena. Game day was there. The students freaking bum rushed the gates in the morning, and people were getting trampled and shit. The administration certainly didn't do a good job setting that. They get an F for whoever made that decision because when game day's been here before, people have camped out
Mhm.
for the spots, and they didn't want people camping this time. And whoever came up with that solution instead, that was certainly a bad look. I'm glad that didn't make more the national media rounds than it did because that was an embarrassing look. But I mean, it goes to show how, I mean, even for game day, it was loud, it was packed. Like they were letting people, even if you didn't have a ticket for the game, they were letting everybody like you could just come watch game day whether you had a ticket to the game
Mhm.
or not. So it was packed in there for game day, and
I
I
mean,
mean,
that's typically how it is with college game day. You just kind of show up for free and watch it. First come, first serve.
yeah, I know
Um,
in years past, at least I went a couple years ago, we had game day the
mhm.
day we played Alabama, and because the game was an afternoon tip, you if you went in for game day, you had to have a ticket, and then you had to
Mhm.
stay in until the game.
Mhm.
So, but since this was a night game, they just kind of let anybody in there. Man, it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
just great day on the plains, man. Like I said, I'm just proud of Auburn, proud to be a fan. I mean, Toomer's Corner was electric after the game. They rolled it up good and had a boom box out there. It was packed, and it's just like it was one of those games and one of those days as a fan you remember forever. And I mean, if you're a fan deciding whether to go to a big game and spend the money on tickets and stuff, it's one of those experiences yesterday where I'm just like, this is why you buy the tickets and go to the game
Uh,
because like you'll get these moments that for better or for worse because there's certainly been enough bad ones especially with Auburn like but you'll get these moments that you remember for the rest of your life and for this team to prove their number one rank especially against Tennessee when that was kind of the debate for a while for number one was with Auburn and Tennessee and to get the win here. I don't know, I'm rambling on, I'm sorry, but
no,
it was a big one.
I bet you had a similar experience to what I did last year with Purdue and Arizona in Indianapolis. Um, just a massive, absolutely massive game. You'll remember those type of games forever if you get the opportunity to go one for your for your fan base. Um, Obviously, that wasn't really a college game day, but still, it was the number one versus number three team. So at the time, and in a special season, which you're experiencing with Auburn this year. So I get it being hyped up about that experience.
I also wanted to make sure I gave a shout. Like I got the shirt on. Shout out to Outlive. It's a program that Bruce Pearl runs. Dates back to his days at Tennessee, and he brought it over to Auburn too. Where it's a program that he uses to raise money for cancer, to fight cancer in the state, and donates it to all kinds of hospitals to help people with their bills and their fight throughout the state. So I think there's about 15 different hospitals in the state that are
Mm-hmm.
getting money. I think I saw like so every year they do an Outlive game, and they encourage people to buy their Outlive T-shirts. They give them out to students. They restaurants all like every week or every day during that week. There's a designated restaurant in Auburn that's like that has Outlive night, and they donate a portion of their sales to Outlive. And there was a lot of great work that Auburn fans were doing on Twitter to rally people to donate money and buy T-shirts to the game. And I think I'd have to go check the tweet. So apologies if I'm getting the number wrong, but I think they raised like some. And let me get the number so I don't say something wrong and sound stupid. But um, they raised they raised $300,000 for to support people fighting cancer throughout the state of Alabama. So I know how much that program means to Bruce Pearl, and for to have that game and a memorable night like this, and then for money to raise that amount of money for such a good cause, it means a ton. So, like I said, shout out to Outlive. If you ever are looking for something to donate some money to or charity to check out, I'd definitely recommend looking into them and what they do.
Yeah, well said.
But
That was I mean, yesterday kind of reminded me, not really reminded me, but 2017 Gonzaga, that team probably should have won a national championship, but they're a type of team that never really had to divert from their style of play. They ran through first two rounds of the tournament, got to West Virginia, Sweet 16. That was a good West Virginia team. I think Javon Carter was there at the time, and Huggins was there still as the coach. But they won a grind out type of game, that exactly that West Virginia wanted to play against them.
I
They
remember that
threw
game. Lucas was none too happy
of
that I
course,
picked West
yes.
Virginia.
Yeah. They threw everything they had at Gonzaga and played a style that I think they objectively were not comfortable playing. It was not the way they wanted to play, but they did. And once they won that game, it's like, okay, now they're capable of winning every single game, every single style that they go
Kind of
against.
the same style game almost that happened to them in the national championship that year.
Yeah, and
That one
sadly, that
obviously
was a
didn't
foul
go their
fest.
way.
They called everything. Got Zach Collins kicked out of the game. But yeah, so that's kind of how if you pass that test, playing another team style, I would say that Tennessee probably, as you said, got the better of the play, and Auburn just had the better players, better execution. Their
Mm-hmm.
players came up bigger than Tennessee's, and that ended up being what it was about. So yeah, it's a game that that should really kind of elevate Auburn forward, in a sense that they are capable of playing that style of basketball against, no one, not really many teams do that better than Tennessee, that kind of just muck it up style. And I don't think this is a great Tennessee team personally. I think one of my friends has, said like any team with Zakai Ziegler as their best player is just not a team worth putting your faith in. And that's kind of how I felt watching them, like, against Auburn. Just,
Chaz was pretty clutch late in that game,
Chaz
though.
was good, but it still goes to like Chaz is not Dalton Connect. They don't have that like Grant Williams type player, that Dalton Connect type player. But yeah, really impressed by what Auburn had, and finding a way to win that later in that game. That's a big one. So Tennessee probably, feels poor after that, obviously, but that's a game that they probably feel like, hey, if this weren't a neutral floor, if this were a home game for us, this might be a game that would have went our way. But,
Sure.
credit to Auburn. That's they're playing like the best team in the country, them and Duke. And, give them credit.
Auburn and Tennessee played a game just like this 2 years ago in Knoxville.
Yeah.
I believe the final was like 50-49 or something pretty similar to what we saw in that one. That was the one where Wendell Green shot the 3 at the end and probably a missed foul because they like crashed into him like as he was landing for the shot, which is the same kind of call that lost us the Final Four game against Virginia, which is like where a lot of the spite for us came in that game. But a very similar game to that one a couple years ago, and that one went Tennessee's way, and that was also like not as good an Auburn team as where I mean it just goes to show like we have guards on this team that can make that big shot, knock down a 3-pointer when you need it, and that's what Miles Kelly did last night. And there wasn't a Miles Kelly on that team 2 years ago. We're relying on Wendell Green and KD Johnson, and I mean, no disrespect to those guys. They were
all the disrespect
awesome.
To how, some of those
I won't
guys.
disrespect. They were great players. Well, good players here. I'll take a step back from great, but certainly not a team with the shooters.
Jabari Smith, an apology.
Yeah. And that was Janai's first year in Auburn too. The game I'm referring to, which it goes to show how he's developed as a player, because they were able to neutralize him a lot more. And even when he was coming back from an injury and having an off night, he was able to step up.
Yeah.
All right. But
I mean, they were good, but yeah.
Last thing I'll ask about this game, because I didn't try not to just talk. I could talk about Auburn all night, but I know that's not what we're here to do. But last thing I want to say is obviously Cooper Flagg is going to have the favorability for National Player of the Year being on Duke, playing against weaker competition in the ACC. But Janai comes back from the injury, only misses 2 games, and 16 and 13 last night. I think he had 5 blocks. He had the clutch assist to Miles Kelly that for the winning shot. So is there a chance after that game yesterday with how quickly Janai seems to be himself again, do you think the National Player of the Year race is back open for Broome, or do you still think Cooper Flagg's going to run away with it?
It'll probably be Cooper Flagg, but Janai Broome was the difference last night, for sure. If Janai Broome doesn't play in that game, it very likely goes the other way for Auburn, with how bad the offensive performance was on Auburn's, just from the field. Those 16 points, that's the difference right there in a 2-point game.
Yeah, unfortunately for Janai, I think this is kind of Cooper Flagg's award to lose now. I don't think a lot of if you don't really follow college basketball closely, I think some people would be surprised to hear that the ACC is so down, because it's been, the 2 most watchable brands in the sport are in the conference. And yeah, that takes, I'm not saying it's like a Travis Hunter Heisman campaign that the media is kind of running, but I think the NBA upside for Cooper Flagg has people, just assuming this guy, should win. And he's played well, not to take anything away from him, but yeah, he's going to put up much bigger numbers. And yeah, that Duke team, it's not totally out of the question that they won't lose another game the rest of the season. So
they're plus 130 on FanDuel right now to run the table in the ACC.
So they got the Carolina games. But other than that, they are significantly better than the rest of the conference. Wake Forest, who's a pretty, they're probably an above average team, and Duke at no point was never not in control against them, and he just brings a ton to that team defensively, and Janai was the best player yesterday. Tennessee found success kind of putting him in ball screens and getting him involved in some actions, in some pick and roll actions. They found success with that. Not saying that it's not something that really hurts his Player of the Year case. But that was something that Tennessee tried to exploit. Jay Billis talked about it on the broadcast while Tennessee was going to a timeout before the final possession. So that's just something to watch when they play Bama. That's that might be something that they try and really get him caught up in. But yeah, right now I would say probably Cooper Flagg's award to lose. He'd certainly deserve it. But yeah, I think he's probably going to run away with it here, unfortunately for Janai.
All right. Well, yeah, that's enough talk on that game. That was obviously the big one of the day. But we'll go to the second biggest game of the day. Another very big one out of the Big 12 was Houston 92, Kansas 86. Like I said, I was spotty on this one. I was trying to watch it in the arena. Our game started, so didn't get to catch the end. So I was in and out there. So I'll definitely throw it to you guys to take care of this one. But I know Houston was down. They came back. It was back and forth towards the end of regulation. And then I know they got a steal on an inbound to force overtime, I believe, if I have right. I should have went back and watched the highlights of the game, but I did not do that. But yeah, that's I won't try to bullshit my way through this game anymore. I'll throw it to you two to cover this one.
I know I'm kind of spotty as well because I'd just gotten back from a game and I had a couple beers, so I wasn't the most locked in on the game. But I watched some of the end of it towards as the Tennessee and Auburn game was coming on. Kind of flip flop back and forth between ESPN News and ESPN as it was ending. But Kansas definitely fumbled the bag against Houston. Houston, crazy offensive performance from a team that's not usually known for their offense, more so known for their aggressive defensive style. Roberts for Houston had a great game. Juwan Roberts with 24 points. Malik, or I think his name's pronounced Malik Wilson.
I don't think that's correct.
Maybe. I don't.
Lake Wilson?
There you go.
Potato. But
Yeah.
We froze him up.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a mess though. This was not a good look for Kansas. This game was over at multiple points. Kansas had the game pretty much wrapped up. And I don't know how, obviously credit some to Houston, but this was a choke by Kansas across the board. It kind of goes to show you where the state of that program is. Usually any game at phog used to be like scheduled loss. Like, doesn't matter what you do in that game, you're probably going to lose because Bill Self at the last probably 7-8 years has been the best coach in the country, maybe.
Bill,
and
if I can add to that real quick, like Bill had a weird press conference earlier this year where he's like, I don't feel the same energy from the students, and I can't put my finger on why. And it's like, I can.
Yeah,
You're
I
not
have
as
a theory.
good.
But yeah, I mean, that building used to be like a house of horrors for any team that came there, especially in conference play. Didn't matter who it was, they were going to beat them. And for them to lose a game the way that they did at home is just not something I've seen from that team in quite some time. And they're veteran players, just making huge mistakes down the stretch. DeJuan Harris just looked rough towards the end of that game. He missed some huge free throws, allowed Houston to come down the floor, cut it to 3. I believe Kansas took a timeout, and then after the timeout, that's when they threw the ball away, and Houston took the 3 and tied it. At that point, that's probably the game. Houston's going to win the overtime. Kansas has been in control of the game up until then, but that's one where you can look at the win probability and just be like, what the hell happened here? And yeah, but it was a mess. It was a nightmare. And that was a game where we talked about with Tennessee and Auburn, how that game would have went if it were a Tennessee home game or on a neutral floor. That's a game where if that were a Tennessee home game, they might win by 15 or 20. And if that's a neutral floor, they probably win by 8 to 10 comfortably. They are significant, not significantly, but they're better. They're a better team than Kansas. They're just way more disciplined, way better defensively. And this is one of the better offensive teams Houston has had. So that's big time win for them. But yeah, for Kansas, that's just inexcusable across the board to lose how they did.
You've seen it with this Kansas team since opening night. Really, they came into the year with like national champion favorites, preseason number 1, all that, and
it's a lot of talent, but they just have not been able to put it together. And
I know Flory Badunga finally stepped up and had a good game.
Yeah, that was probably one of his better games. But yeah, it's just completely marred and ruined by how that game finished for Kansas. And
was this a Dickinson choke job, by the way? Because I saw him getting a lot of slander on Twitter today.
I don't know why this happened, but for some reason, they come out of timeout into inbound the ball, and ball's inbounded in Dickinson's direction. And I don't know if they were trying to go to him, but it was a mess. And he, his man intercepts the ball, kicks the ball out for 3, and that's it. But yeah, I wouldn't say it wasn't on him. It's not like a choke job per se on, the likes of, hey, let's just bag on Hunter Dickinson here. So it was one of those games that you just kind of have to watch it over and over again to be like, how did this happen? And yeah, it's just kind of a state of both those programs. And Houston's an ascending program, and Kansas right now is not. So yeah, not a that's a terrible result for Kansas. That's just a game they had to have, and they didn't. They just gave it away. So
do you see? Can you see a scenario? And obviously, Bill Self is a great coach, where like this Kansas team figures it out and makes a deep run in March, or do you just kind of think they are what they are at this point? And
I personally think they have the talent to figure it out. I mean, on paper, they are like a top 5 roster. Problem with them is they've almost so much talent to the point where they don't really have a great complement of role players. They get all these transfers from programs where they're running the offense themselves, or the offense goes through them, like an AJ Storr or Zeke Mayo, and those kinds of players get to Kansas, and not everything is necessarily run through them. So you just have they need more guys like KJ Adams to fill in those roles of doing the dirty work. They don't really have much of that right now. When you watch Houston play, for example, they just defend as if their lives depend on it, and that's the identity of their team. I do not think Kansas has an identity. I don't think this Kansas team has one particularly. The team that won the national championship, that team had just 6 studs who knew their role and executed it really well. And, they were able to come back and win that national championship that way. And, now it's kind of convoluted. I do not know what the issue is necessarily with Hunter Dickinson, but he is, not having a horrible season, but it's not always translating to wins. And it certainly didn't a year ago. And this year, the team's better than what the team was last year. And the team on paper is better, and they're not playing great basketball, especially again. I mean, I should clarify. They're not totally out of the question here. Like, it wouldn't shock me if they went to an Elite 8 or something. But, yeah, it's not the same, like, old school Bill Self teams that you're accustomed to seeing. This just seems like a group of talent thrown together without an identity, especially on defense. And, when you go into it, Houston does not have as much talent as Kansas. But Kelvin Sampson is a, like, top-tier, elite, top 5 coach probably, who's coaching at a higher level than Bill Self right now. And that team has bought in completely. They defend extremely well, and this is one of their better offensive teams they've had. So, yeah, that's the state of those two schools right now.
You got anything on that, Jacob? Or?
I was just gonna say, Kansas they have a bunch of pieces that don't have any team chemistry. It's the same old adage, at a place like a Duke or Kentucky, you get a whole bunch of 5-star freshmen, but they don't know how to play with each other yet. Unless you have some leadership in there, you're not going to have a team. And Hunter Dickinson's not a leader, and I don't think AJ Storr is a leader. That's kind of what they were banking on this year, and not really worked out for them. So.
And they were on, and I know Matt said and he's right. Like it's not like Dickinson's playing terrible or anything, but I don't think he's a guy that can be like your alpha leader of a team that you can always bank on. And it seems like they built this team around it was contingent on Hunter Dickinson being that guy. And it's like Jacob said, when the pieces don't fit together, and then your guy is a guy who's just. I'm saying guy a lot. Your guy is a guy who's not good enough to be a guy. I thought that was pretty funny, but I think a lot of it comes down to that and you see that with teams a lot is you need an alpha who you can go to, who's going to be clutch in these situations when you get into close games, who's going to close games out like we saw.
Yeah, they're not an imposing team. They're not a team that anyone's afraid to play against, really. And that was kind of, Bill Self was always going to have his team prepared. And that team was, always going to execute really well just because he's one of the greatest in-game coaches the sport's ever seen. And yeah, they just don't have no one's afraid of Kansas. Gonzaga completely took them apart in the NCAA tournament last year. And yeah, Hunter Dickinson does not have that factor. That factor they had with Darrell Arthur when they won first national championship under Bill Self, and then Doka Azubuike had that as well when he was playing for Kansas. They've always had, they've been anchored by their bigs kind of, especially on the defensive end. They've kind of tried to play through the posts over some years. But yeah, with Hunter Dickinson right now, defensively, he just does not put much of a scare into a lot of these teams. So maybe that's part of the issue. But yeah, they just always had that we are going to win every home game we play, and we are going to be better coached and better prepared than every opponent we see. And that, to this point, has not been the case yet. So that could be anything from roster construction to just the players themselves not being up for what they need to do, what it's going to take to win.
And before we move on from this game completely, we've talked a lot about Kansas. Where do we stand on Houston? Because this is a Houston team that had kind of been lacking a big win this year. That West Virginia win is probably their biggest one, and that's not aging particularly well the way they've looked the last couple games. So they really needed a big win to put them on the map to really make people start believing in them. And that was kind of one of the big questions for them coming into this year is how are they going to replace Shed and all that. And Juwan Roberts obviously stepped up yesterday and showed that he can be the guy they can rely, because that's the thing with these Houston teams is under Sampson is they're always good defensively and they always have great guards who can take over a game. I mean, we saw it with Cryer. You have guards.
Yeah, that's always been his thing. It's guards and defense for Houston, and they've rode that out for years now under Kelvin Sampson. And this is exactly what they needed. They needed that kind of win. A game that they were not supposed to win, a game they had no business winning. And on the road at, the toughest place to play in the country, they pull one out.
Well, the only other argument I have for that is I think the toughest place to play in the country might be in this state now.
But sure, you can. Yeah, I will accept your biased answer there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I have to say it. Like you can't throw that terminology out there and give me an opportunity to pounce on that.
Sure. Yeah.
But um, but yeah.
Oh,
Other than that, Jacob, you got anything else on that game, Houston, or anything
I,
before we move on?
I do not.
All right. Well, we'll move on from that one. Since these were three games, I put in the title. The next one we'll talk about is Xavier 72 or Xavier 76, UConn 72. Um, another tough loss for the Huskies. Another game I didn't get to see much of. Did we get any good Dan Hurley moments in this game, or was
I,
Dan more controlled
I
in
would say
this
it
one?
was a standard Dan game. You know,
I think there
there
was
was a shot
one.
clock violation at the end.
Yeah.
On that he was just kind of his average self. I would say so. Nothing out of the ordinary there for him, but
We,
he was
we
certainly the topic of conversation going into the game, and certainly coming out of the game. It's probably the biggest conversation topic in the sport, unrelated to what's happening on the floor.
we dropped the ball on our Friday show, by the way, because we somehow just went through the whole show and didn't like we discussed the UConn game and all, but we didn't discuss. Don't turn your back on me. I'm the best fucking coach in the sport. We managed to
Awesome.
gloss over that one. So hand up for that. We're new to this. We dropped the ball there,
Was
Uh,
but
I?
yeah,
No, I didn't go on that. Yeah.
all I've got to say is you can't be doing that when you're losing to Xavier and Xavier.
Let's chill on Xavier. They're not a bum team
I was
here.
trying. I was trying to think about who else did they lose to? Villanova. Who's the other one?
They have struggled on the
Creighton.
road in
Creighton.
conference play. Yeah.
Creighton at home.
yeah. I mean, and we saw this 2 years ago with them. Where what
Yeah.
they had what they lose 7 of 8 2 years ago, I
Yeah,
believe.
they were. I
Or
think they were 9-9 in conference, and they finished fourth in the Big East, and then Marquette knocked them out in the semifinal of the Big East tournament. So they were not, and they were seeded what they were that year because their non-conference was so great.
we'll never forget that Marquette knocking out UConn in the conference tournament, by the way, because that maybe produced one of the top 5 Barstool clips of all time with Jersey Jerry. You said you were gonna ride with me and you didn't. I am March.
Yeah,
I'll always remember that game for that. So I just had to throw that
yeah,
in
that
real
was
quick
that
since
was a
it
great
came up.
Shaka game. Also, yeah, that was awesome. That was a great Big East season. Depending on who you talk to, but yeah, that tournament that year did not disappoint, and it rarely ever does. But yeah, it was that was a great one. But yeah, this is not something that UConn hasn't done before. The Big East does. They are really competitive with each other, at least the top half of the conference. I'm not throwing Paul in there with them just yet, but yeah, I mean, it's still yeah, I can't get enough Big East basketball. It's still love it. I don't care how good the rest of the conference is. It is second to none. Love it.
So similar question to what I asked about Kansas, I'll ask you too, and I know you're a UConn fan. Like, is this same question basically? Like, can you see UConn kind of righting this ship and getting it together? Because I just think the problem with this UConn thing is in like they're still missing Caravan, so that's huge.
You mean
And
McNeely?
McNeely,
Or,
I'm sorry, Caravan's
Yeah,
in there.
wrong light. Yeah.
My bad. Yeah, wrong light. But my bad, misspoke. But yeah, they're still missing McNeely. Um, so that's obviously been a huge part of this. He's been out all of conference play, but pretty much. So whenever he comes back, which question mark when that's going to happen, but whenever he does, of it, like that's going to be a big improvement because he's supposed to be the best fucking player on this team. So it's hard to grade them right now without him. But assuming they do get him back and he's back at full strength, is this a UConn team with Dan? Do you see them riding the ship and keep being a factor come March, or do you think this is just kind of not their year?
It's hard because I mean, the last two tournaments now, they have not. They've wiped out everybody. Doesn't matter who it is, whether it's Stetson or Purdue. It doesn't matter. They've controlled and won all these games pretty handily.
And the difference is, though, it's like those teams
Now,
had legit NBA
yes, those
talent.
teams were stacked. They were unbelievably stacked, and they had terrific center play. They had terrific guard play. It's tough. I think this year, I could see it. They have the talent, but they defend poorly. Just full stop. They don't defend nearly well enough now to be at the level of a team that's going to play in a Sweet 16 or Elite 8 or further. I could see it. It's still the best staff in the country. They just need to be at full strength. They're full complement of guys, and who knows? The seeding matchups as well are going to be important for them. There are some teams that they cannot afford to see in tournament play, but yeah, I think it wouldn't surprise me. It's kind of a situation where no outcome would shock me. I wouldn't be shocked if they were eliminated in the first round, and I wouldn't be shocked if they, went to the Elite Eight or further. But right now, yeah, they just need to defend way better than what they are. Their bigs get into foul trouble every game. It's been a huge issue for the team all year. Obviously, there are people who peddle the conspiracy of like, well, that's because the refs hate Dan Hurley, that these guys are in foul trouble. But yeah, they just are not defending well enough right now. And once that gets going, I hope they find a defensive identity here soon. Because they certainly can score, and when McNeely gets in there, they will be a much better team than what they are now. But yeah, they're solo balls, playing good basketball. Hassan Diarra has been kind of like never been like a huge fan of his game, running an offense himself. But yeah, they just once they get McNeely back and hopefully Caravan going, yeah, get those bigs out of foul trouble. There's a version of that team that could go pretty far, but yeah, right now it's hard to say. Is because it's just not their full complement of guys. So we'll see how they finish out.
I was gonna say, just this UConn team don't have nearly the level of interior play that the last two teams did. A lot of their, solo balls carrying a lot of their offense at the current moment when nothing else is going. And when he's not going, it's kind of looks like it did against Creighton, or Villanova, or any of the losses. Liam McNeely being out's big for him, but I don't think this UConn team is a second weekend team at this point.
I tend to agree, except I will say this, especially as a fan of a team that's probably going to be on the one line. I feel bad for whatever one seed has UConn popping up in an 8-9 game in their region, because that's a terrifying proposition to
it's
have
tough.
to.
Yeah, they're going to be just a thorn for someone to deal with if they are on that 8-9 line or that 7 line. That'll be a mess for someone. Because the talent's there, and certainly like some of those guys, just have yet to really come into their own yet. Solo's done really well, but they're still kind of like they haven't gotten a ton of consistency from Ross and Jalen Stewart yet. But once those guys get going, yeah, it's on. But yeah, agreed. They do not have like the luxury of Donovan Clingan coming off the bench as they did 2 years ago when he's getting like 20 minutes a game. So yeah, it's definitely a different team for sure. Terrace and Samson Johnson are definitely different style bigs than Sonogo and Clingan, but yeah, so far have not been horribly effective, but hopefully that'll change here going forward.
All right, I got two more games that I think are probably big stories we should talk about, and then I'll kind of get more of a rapid fire in the game, like after these two, where I just like read them off and give some thoughts, move on. But I figured the two ones that were also like worth a discussion. First one, both two in the SEC. First one I'll lead off with is Vanderbilt 74, Kentucky 69. Um, yeah, Vanderbilt continues to uh, pluck some good teams off on their home floor, and they're a team that's kind of hanging around that bubble right now,
Mhm.
and they've gotten some big wins in the last couple weekends to solidify their resume and get back to the tournament. And they got the one against Tennessee last week, and they get the one against Kentucky yesterday. Um, so, yeah, thoughts on that one? Whoever wants to lead off there.
I guess I'll start. I think Vanderbilt should solidly be in the tournament after beating Tennessee and Kentucky. Of course, they need to get a road win, but they are a much different Vanderbilt team compared to last year. Mark Byington has them going. He's just showing what he did at Georgia Southern and James Madison is translating, and they're good. They are a solid contender in the SEC at the current moment.
I mean, they definitely changed the
Yeah.
style there. We're
Mhm.
like, this is a Vanderbilt team. Like, they'll run with you.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah. I
they
mean,
want to score. Like,
Vanderbilt should be a powerhouse. Like on paper, that school has all the resources in a great location in the SEC to be a basketball power. Hopefully for them, they have the right coach to do it now. But yeah, they that Tennessee win, and I think a lot of people, myself included, were kind of like, "That's nice. That's just like another night in the SEC. Like, can you do that consistently? Can you knock off those kinds of teams?" Kentucky struggled. It was not their best game. Um, they had a lot of stupid turnovers in that game. Did not execute great down the stretch. I know that was a really frustrating second half for them. But credit to Vanderbilt, they outplayed them just across the board. Kind of seemed like not, effort was uh, just on another level. They were finally riding that home crowd, which again had another court storm. Um,
did you see them
so
tell like begging the
yes,
students not to storm the
yes, they
court? They were like,
tried,
we need
and
this money for NIL.
they had a wall of security on the far side of the court, and the kids are just running through. I was like, what are we doing? What is security here for? Um, but yeah, that was a fun game to watch. And yeah, credit to Vanderbilt. They are. I would not call them a contender for the conference yet, but I do think that they are moving towards being a solid tournament team, like a team that's going to be in the tournament and a team that is capable of winning an NCAA tournament game.
And that's the perks of being a Vanderbilt in the SEC versus like another
Sure,
team like
versus like
Drake.
SMU or something. Yeah,
Drake, like
yeah,
you have
or
these
yeah,
out, like the total overall like big picture, like people are gonna look and be like, well, Drake only lost fucking 4 games this year. Why are they out? And then they're gonna look at Vanderbilt with maybe 10, 11 losses, and be like, what
yeah.
are
I
we
know that
looking
was a
at? But
big issue last year with Indiana State,
yeah,
and them getting that large. That certain we talk about that with Drake. Drake's not that kind of team this year. It's going to be them or Bradley coming out of that conference probably, but yeah, right now that is a huge perk for them because they're getting somebody good every night, and they're going to have an opportunity to knock out some of these teams on the road. So yeah, they through conference play alone, they should be able to build up a pretty good NCAA tournament resume. That, in my opinion, should get them into the field, given where especially the teams they've already beat, Tennessee and Kentucky, where they're projected to be.
yeah,
Um,
wins over Tennessee and Kentucky are going to be better wins than any other team in that range
sure,
is going to
yeah,
have.
like
Like,
probably besides Auburn, those are the next two SEC teams that carry the most weight beating them. So yeah, and Florida obviously, but yeah,
Alabama.
that's a huge win for Vanderbilt, and yeah, selfishly, I hope they get in. they look like a tournament team. They they would have to have a pretty miserable second half of conference play to miss the tournament, in my opinion. So
I mean, you're seeing that now in the SEC though. It's like you got to keep it on because like Georgia's an example of a team where 2 weeks ago they looked like a solid tournament team, and now they're just dropping everything and went and got their fucking doors blown off against Florida. And
yeah,
I haven't looked at a bracket update today, but I imagine Georgia's has to be slipping. And like I said 2 weeks ago, they were a team in really good shape, and Georgia's probably now a team trending towards that bubble because it's just so hard in the SEC. And like none of Georgia's losses have been like bad losses, but like when you have to play, I mean their last few games have been Florida, Auburn. Um, who else is in there? I mean, they've had a gauntlet. Sorry if I'm Arkansas. I guess that wasn't a tough one, but it was on the road in Fayetteville. So, but like they're a team that's missed some opportunities the last few weeks, and now like I said, I haven't looked at an update today, but I imagine Georgia has to be a team falling in that range at this point.
yeah,
With how much
they're going to be a bubble team, and they're like, I don't know where they would be after yesterday, because Florida really took it to them. That was not competitive. So yeah, I would say they are probably like comfortably on the bubble now.
And that's where the Arkansas game comes in too, because it's like even the games in the SEC where you're like, okay, like this is one of the bottom feeders. We need to take care of business here. It's like there's no easy outs.
No,
Like they go on the road in Fayetteville and had a big
maybe
lead and
Arkansas,
blew it.
but that would
Yeah,
have been the easiest out you could find.
yeah.
So
That's what I'm saying. It's
like
like that's a
that
game.
was the
They're like, we
easy
got to
out.
have this and take care of business, and they
Horrible
just
beat, by
fall
the
there.
way, in that
Oh my
game.
God, we talked about
Yeah,
that
that
on
was
Friday.
shocking.
I had Arkansas pick them, so it didn't affect me. But
Sure,
I know the
yeah,
line
that's
closed at 2.5.
yeah,
Yeah, we talked
it's
about that on Friday. Were you on
yeah.
the wrong or right side of that? Or
I'm never on the wrong side of Arkansas bets because I'm driving off a cliff with them. It seems every time I'm betting a game on them. So
um, but yeah, Jacob, you got anything else? Vanderbilt, Kentucky. Yeah, and just real quick, like Kentucky too. Like just to add, like I'm pretty sure I asked the same question when they lost to Alabama, but now this is obviously a little bit worse of a loss than Alabama is, obviously. So
just a
Are you
tad.
concerned?
Yeah.
Are you concerned about Kentucky, or do you still feel confident in Mark Pope and what he's doing there? I feel bad, by the way, because I do like Mark Pope, and we did a little National Coach of the Year discussion at the end of the show Friday, and I forgot to. I don't think any of us mentioned Mark Pope's name at any point, which that's just oversight by me to not mention him because he definitely deserves to be in that discussion.
Does
But
he?
I think so. I mean, first year, very young team, like not NBA talent on this team or anything, and like he's elevated them from where they were with Cal. Like he kind of inherited what should have probably been a downfall, and like he's made them better. So
Yeah,
I
I
do.
mean, you're still
eh,
at Kentucky. Like, you still have more resources than the rest of the conference does, probably. Like it's kind of like in the office where like Ryan tells Jim, like, congratulations on doing your job. Like, you're doing your job at Kentucky. Like, that team should be what they are right now every year.
Uh,
I wouldn't be like opposed to Mark Pope, like, but I do feel like that would be immediate, like, yeah, let's stick it to Cal some more. Like,
I'll
Mark
put it to
Pope,
you.
coach of the year.
I'll put it to you real quick since you weren't here Friday. If you just like, you don't need to get in depth or anything, but if you just like, if you have one off the top of your head, you don't have to if you don't want. But Friday we did our top 5 national coach of the year. Mine Friday I said Pearl, Kelsey, Shire, Penny, and DeVries. That was my top 5. I can't remember Jacobs, but well, I'll throw it to you since you weren't here Friday. What would yours be? Because I probably replace DeVries with Pope, especially after yesterday. At this
Well,
point.
yeah, since beating Iowa State, they've been a trash heap of a team, unfortunately. Yeah, that's a good question. I do think like the best coaching job I do think what Pat Kelsey's done has been the most impressive, just because of where that school's been recently to where they are now. I would say that it's probably the best, like, just straight up turnaround. Yeah, I that might be, if Auburn continues to run through SEC play, if they finish SEC play undefeated, or if they finish with like one or two losses, it would be hard not to give it to Pearl. So I mean, those two have kind of been, in a for me, that's those two have been really impressive.
Definitely got to put Shire in there too. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's
and
like, with
also,
all that talent, like, you
and,
better fucking be
and I haven't
winning.
heard I haven't heard this guy getting his due in those discussions as much as I feel like he should this year. But Penny Hardaway deserves a ton of credit because that place is a fucking mess. A week before the season started, they had players leaving, fired his whole staff like a week before the season started, and he has them now like rolling, like
They're
solid
playing. They're
tournament
playing
team.
well. They,
Yeah, like I feel like
big win
Penny is
today.
not getting enough due in those discussions.
Yeah, and they had a good Maui also. That was considered a big upset at Maui when they beat UConn. Now that's not really the case. They have been playing good basketball, but it is like Penny's brought a lot of talent in there over the years. They just haven't really, last year, and the year before, when that I know a lot of Memphis people thought that could have been them when FAU went to the Final Four, because Memphis was the team that was barely knocked out by FAU. But yeah, this is give Penny a lot
And
of credit.
probably a
This
jump
is a
ball,
good team.
like
Yeah,
a jump ball
yeah,
call, like literally
yeah.
could have
They
changed
were
the whole
probably
complexion of that tournament.
screwed out of playing there. But another Coach of the Year guy who I'm higher on than most is Todd Golden from Florida. I know he's got some of the like a couple months ago there was some not so flattering news and rumors about him circulating.
There was an assistant too that just got caught up. There's some weird touchy feely stuff going on down there.
Yeah, it's a weird situation. I don't have the details or anything on that, so I don't feel comfortable commenting or throwing him in a rough light. But yeah, I think he's done an outstanding job with that Florida team. They've done a great job getting talent, recruiting, and that was just a home run hire from San Francisco, and now he's finally putting it together. I think
Bruce Pearl guy.
He's had a huge year. Yeah, he's awesome. Love Todd Golden. So he deserves a lot of credit. I would say an outside contender for National Coach of the Year. If Mick Cronin survives the season mentally, I want to give Mick Cronin some award for being able
seeing
to
the Statue of Liberty twice
season alive. Yeah, like I don't agree with half of what he said. Yeah, like I don't agree with half of what Mick Cronin has said, like especially when like talking about his team. But like, man, that guy is never-ending entertainment.
That guy's seen the Statue of Liberty twice.
Yeah, really. Yeah, love hearing from Mick. So yeah, I think that between those three, Pat Kelsey, Bruce, and Todd Golden would probably be like the three
you're putting Todd over Shire.
Yeah, I would put Todd over John Shire. I mean, Shire's done a good job, but it's another one of those situations where it's like you have a ton of talent, like that. Their top 8 might be better than any other top 8 in the country, and they might have arguably the best player in the country on their team. So it's hard to just Shire's done a good job, but yeah, it's
doing that with a very young team is, I think, why he gets mentioned in that.
Yeah, I think that's impressive in itself. I think the ACC being what it is kind of helping them along with that. But yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's just like given what Pat Kelsey inherited, given the kind of the build that Todd Golden's gone through, and then what the team that Bruce Pearl is now playing, being at the top of the best conference by a pretty comfortable margin, I would say. It's hard to put John Shire up against those guys. I think John Shire's done a great job, and this is the best Duke has defended in years, maybe a decade or more.
Coach K was not good. At the
Coach
end,
K
but
by
we
the
don't talk
last
about that.
few, they were running zone a lot in some of these games with like Marvin Bagley's there. They were running a zone. Just times where they had hilarious amounts of talent, more than some of these other teams, and they were not getting the effort on defense. He is John Shire.
3 top 10 picks got put on his ass by Tom Izzo.
Yeah, and John Shire is getting defensive buy-in from that team. That team is awesome defensively. I know not a lot of people associate Duke with that, but
none of us mentioned Izzo for that too. I feel like he would.
Yeah, he'd be a good one. I had mentioned Todd Golden in my list. Under the radar guy, I had mentioned DeVries at West Virginia, and then I said very under the radar, Randy Bennett at St. Mary's.
Oh
yeah,
well,
he's he could be in there every year.
Mm-hmm.
All right, move on to the
games.
Next game, I wanted to bring up Coach of the Year is fun, but we'll keep running through some games. Like I said, this is the last one I'll talk about in depth, and then I'll just kind of start running through stuff, and we can give quick thoughts, so that way we don't drag this thing out to all night. But next one, mainly not even the game. I didn't see any of the game actually because it was during hours, but one of the big stories of the weekend: Alabama 80, LSU 73, and the game's the game. We can talk about the game, but obviously the big story out of there is the Mark Sears situation and just weird stuff coming out. I'm not even just saying that as a Alabama hater, but when you have a guy who came into the year as the favorite, either favorite or second favorite, it was him or Dickinson was the favorite coming into the year, I believe, for National Player of the Year.
Yeah, those three and Cooper Flagg probably had the most momentum for the award coming in this season.
And we saw Sears, he struggled at the start of the year, and then he picked it up there in the middle, and then he just came out and threw out an absolute stinker, and then got benched in the second half, was pretty pissed off and emotional on the bench. And Nate Oates just flat out said, I'm playing the guys who are going to give us the best chance to win, which is a wild comment to say about your best, who's supposed to be your best player, I guess, and a time where I feel like, and I'm not a coach, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to be fuck Alabama, but I don't like Nate Oates, but I feel like honestly, in that situation, you probably want to pick your guy up, especially a guy you're going to need Mark Sears, more than just be he sucked, basically, in that situation. I didn't think that was the smartest way for him to handle that, but I don't know, weird situation there, and but I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that.
I didn't even hear about this, but that's wild. He got
Jacob
benched.
just did the Trump RBG. This is the first you're telling me of this.
Yeah. But
basically, Mark Sears had 0 points and got benched in the second half, and Nate Oates
did not play very much. I think he only played 17 minutes.
Yeah, and Oates said, "I played the guys who gave us the best chance to win." Not a very supportive pick me up and pick your guy up answer from a coach.
Because Mark Sears hasn't been playing that bad recently. He's had some good games coming into. I mean, it was against LSU. I mean, sometimes you just have those players, especially when you're a shooter like Mark Sears. You have your cold games, your nights you're just not making stuff. But yeah, that's a bit wild, bit out there.
Yeah, it was certainly not Bama's best game by a stretch there. But yeah, it's a weird situation. I mean, Nate Oates has not, I'm gonna drop a nuke, but Nate Oates has not been the best with media, as we know with this stuff there.
Breaking news.
Yeah, but Yeah, I think Nate Oates knows Mark Sears better than I do, or any of us, and like that could just be him maybe trying to cover for Mark Sears. If he doesn't want to single him out and just call him out directly, like stuff. I think he's doing that to try and get the most out of his player. Yeah, I don't really know where they stand
And
with that, but
there's
it is a
weird
weird.
stuff too. Like real quick, I don't know if you saw too. Like his mom, Mark Sears' mom, was going on like Facebook and Instagram and like throwing out comments about. This was a funny comment. Somebody's probably gonna see this and be like, "Why are you talking about a guy's mom?" This is a funny comment. I don't care. I don't care if his mom said it or at Bama fan 69 said it. It's a funny comment. Said he wasn't having an off night. The shots weren't just weren't falling. So he's having an off night. I
It's
don't.
like a Yogi Bear quote or something. Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, he like, and I don't really shudder when like coaches call out some of those guys. Like Mark Sears is basically a professional basketball player. Like he could have gone to the NBA last year. He's probably raking in like $2-3 million in NIL or more. And yeah, I don't get the impression that Mark Sears is going to be totally rattled by something Nate had said in a game that they were going to win clearly with or without him.
was
So
it? Because that was a tie game for a while. When I was checking the score, like before I lost service, like it was a back and forth, like close one. So
yeah, I
I
mean
mean,
the Bama way that Oates wants to play is like he's got that system, and the player, like basketball to him is just a math problem, and like we're only going to take threes and layups. Yeah, he has benched players for taking mid-range shots or long twos, because they just totally have disavowed that out of their program entirely. So I don't know the exact reason for him being benched. I admittedly have not done a ton of research on that, aside from the fact that he did not look great. Um, but who knows? I mean, we'll obviously know coming up soon here. And as we talked about earlier, that stretch of games, they're going to need Mark Sears to be playing at a high level to get through that stretch. So we'll see. I would be shocked if this lingered any more than one game, like after that LSU game, and that should be it. I would be shocked if it went any further because of the aspirations for that team, and the talent of that team and the investment they've made in the team this year. So, yeah, I would be shocked if it went any further than what it did.
all right. Well, we'll roll through some of these. Like I said, I'll start reading some scores off, and if there's a game you want to jump into, or if I want to jump into, we'll talk it. But other than that, I'll just kind of roll through them and do some quick notes. But so this is where I'm starting at the start of the day. First game I watched yesterday was the Ed Cooley Bowl, and he got put on his ass at Providence again, as hostile as ever. And yeah, they came out and looked good early and really just fell apart. And Providence won that one 78-68. Really a game. We've seen Georgetown be so good defensively in Big East play, and it was surprising to see them kind of fall apart. And that one, Providence was hitting a lot of big shots. So um, the Friars get one. Yeah, that's not a game we would mention or even talk about if it wasn't for the Ed Cooley stuff. But I wanted to bring up. Did you guys see from that game where there was a kid stole a basketball from Georgetown? It got thrown out, and they found the kid in the bathroom with the basketball.
That's like the little kid running on the floor at the Radford game a couple weeks back
But
Yeah,
in
they
the middle of the game.
that's always a
yeah,
fun one.
yeah.
Any
You guys
Providence
got
home game
anything?
is awesome. Providence has the most underrated atmosphere in the sport. Them and Texas Tech just bring it every
I just
night.
hate that it's not the dunk anymore.
Yeah, that is a disappointing. Shout out to the dunk. But yeah, it's not. It's got a different name, but it's still the same kind of atmosphere, and they're going to get up for that Georgetown game indefinitely. They will never stop. Like bringing the heat on Ed Cooley, which I think is awesome. That's great for the sport. And credit to Ed Cooley and Georgetown. They're playing a lot better. But yeah, that's a game that Providence just still gets up for. The fans get up for. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, Providence is a little better than Georgetown. Say the right team won, but yeah, Georgetown's building something there. So yeah, if Cooley continues on this current trajectory, they'll probably like the day they get a game at Providence, that will be, and Cooley better be ready to get out of that place alive.
Mississippi, Jacob, you didn't have anything else on that one, right?
Mm-mm.
Gotcha. Mississippi State got a 65-60 overtime win at South Carolina. Just bring that up. Another heartbreaker for the Gamecocks.
Choke. Horrible. Yeah.
William Luke
Florida
said
game
to me,
was a mess, and then that one, ooh.
William Luke said to me, like, good comparison. South Carolina basketball right now is like the SEC basketball equivalent of what Auburn football was this past year, where there's so many games like you're in competitive, and just however it happens, you find a way to give it away.
Yeah, you're just standing around there like, I wonder how they're going to lose it this time, like 4th and 31 or something. Those right, like
Nebraska
Oklahoma,
football.
pick six, like
Nebraska football under Scott Frost.
Yeah, really, they mastered losing close games under Scott Frost. Yeah, like that's a tough one for South Carolina, just kind of being like the doormat of that conference.
And they're not bad. Like it's another.
They are not bad. They are not. Colin Murray Boyles is a stud. They have
he's going to be a lot
really, really good players.
There's no one and done talent in the SEC.
Yeah.
If you take out Colin Murray Boyles and Jeremiah Fears and Trey Johnson, but
Days of Newell. Yeah, they have those guys. But yeah, like they just gave away. That Florida game was horrible. They couldn't get the ball over half. Like they couldn't break the press of Florida. It's like watching a high school team try and break a press. And then that game that they just let slip away to Mississippi State. It was just kind of like, how's it going to happen this time? And
I mean, when Auburn played there, like they defended Janai better than anybody has all year. That's obviously the game he got hurt. But even before he got hurt, like Janai was having his worst game of the season, and South Carolina like took Auburn to the absolute limit too, and Auburn was able to pull that one out. But yeah, tough for South Carolina. I feel for he had a good year there last year. I feel for Lamont Paris and that crew. Yeah, I mean they're a good team. They're a good staff, and it's just like one of those. I mean, you saw it with Missouri in the SEC last year. I mean, obviously, like it was the same kind of setup where Dennis Gates and them they had a really good year the year before. And then they turned around last year, and it just kind of all fell apart really quick. And it feels like that's what's
every
happening.
night. It's every night you're getting just like an NCAA tournament team coming to your building.
I hope if this is the question that's going to come up with South Carolina, and it came up with Dennis Gates last year and Missouri, like smartly as you see this year with the results they're putting out, stuck with Dennis Gates, and it's like if South Carolina just if things continue to be a nightmare and they don't pull any of these out, like don't do the Bryce Drew and pull the plug and overreact about 1 year. And I guess that would be the question in South Carolina is like if they can't pull these out, if this thing really goes off the rails, are they going to overreact and pull the plug on Dennis Gates?
It's tough. I mean, especially now, those schools probably feel a lot of pressure to compete because of how good the rest of the conference is. But I think they have the right coach right now. For now, it's just tough because this is the best the SEC's ever been. Maybe obviously the best any conference in the history of the sport has ever been since maybe the Big East. So,
by the way, that made me think to add like you saying that during game day yesterday, like Pete Thamel came on there and like gave Greg Sankey a bunch of credit for like making SEC basketball better and stuff, and it's like. Let's not give that was Mike Slive.
Yeah,
like he went in and said, "Let's start spending some money on fucking basketball and let's stop being a fucking joke. Let's stop letting Kentucky run everything and actually have some competitiveness." And like Yeah, they went on there and were like applauding Greg Sankey for that, and it's like, no, this was a Mike's Live
Greg
initiative.
Sankey
That was
probably scheduled that one or something. They were just like, yeah, after the football season you had, maybe you need a bit of a PR bump here.
yeah, it was just like it was. I thought it was like disrespectful to Mike's Live because like
Yeah.
that was a huge initiative of his that he really started, and I mean like that time frame when Mike's Live did that is like when Auburn decided to hire Bruce Pearl and Alabama went after Greg Marshall, and you like saw these teams start putting a few more dollars into basketball and like trying to build programs. So, um, yeah, obviously we don't have the platform College Game Day does, but let's give Mike Slive his due because he
God
deserves it.
rest his soul. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, anything else? South Carolina, big win for
Mhm.
Mississippi State. They
Mhm.
needed a bounce
Yeah,
back
they
win,
do. They
bad,
did need it.
bad.
Yeah.
Really needed it.
So yeah, big one for them. Michigan State, Rutgers. Um, didn't get the
Another
shit that went
game.
out of.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Rutgers is the Arkansas of the Big Ten. Just continuing
Underperforming.
to. Yeah.
And I believe,
I
did I
mean,
read right? Dylan Harper was rolled out like right before
yeah,
the game. Like,
Yeah.
he played he played but did barely played. Like, I think he was hurt
so
because
that's
he
weird.
played 13 minutes. I was looking at the stats before while you guys were talking about some of the other games earlier, and I mean Rutgers stayed in the game. They just never could get around Michigan State's defense. But um, yeah, they needed to win. They needed that win, but they couldn't get it. So
Um, so yeah, nightmare year. It goes to show college basketball that
mhm.
the days of just getting the talent and thinking it's all going to come together is long by the wayside because it's been a nightmare for Rutgers this year, and I mean, uh, it's crazy because like if you're a coach, like if you told any coach in the country, like you can have Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, there's not a single coach that's going to be like I'm good,
Oh
but
yeah. I mean, there
it's,
were
it's
people who were like not sold that Ace Bailey wasn't better than Cooper Flag, and that could still be the case over time. But
what's
man,
crazy
that's
is like getting those two guys has just like completely gotten Rutgers away from how Pike will build his
all
teams and
the
how he likes to play and like where they were having success.
I
It's like
know
they're
I
just
know
terrible fits for his system and how he likes to play.
the issue wasn't so much that they came; it's the fact that Rutgers, like all of their talent they had the previous 2 years, pretty much left in the portal, um, and they got those two guys, and there's no foundation around them to support two freshmen. I mean, they're freshmen; they're still kids, so there's not really any sort of like guidance when the going gets tough and those tough Big Ten games. Against Michigan State, the Purdue's of the world, going into tough environments and having to play against good teams that have established identities. It just kind of is rough for Rutgers.
Um, but yeah, let's see next one to talk about. Iowa State went out to
Mhm.
Arizona State and rode a huge second half to get a 76-61 win in that one. Curtis Jones had a huge game.
33
Yeah,
points.
that looked a little wobbly for a while. That Arizona State's another team hanging around the bubble, and they really could have used a big win like that. And yeah, huge second half for Iowa State, or because that looked like one that was going to be competitive for a while, and they definitely came in and slammed the door in the second half there.
yeah. Iowa State's a wagon. Uh, like yeah, them and Houston are just kind of operating on another level from the rest of the
No,
Big 12.
no, they're not. Somebody else would
Oh yeah.
disagree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Watch yourself there. Hey, they've
yeah,
won two huge games back to back.
huge.
Baylor has roared to two huge back to back games. Yeah, they had just beaten a very pesky Kansas State team at home. It was a good game by them. VJ Edgecombe finally went for 30. Finally had a big game. Yeah, they were honoring the Immortal 10. It was a big win for Baylor. So gotta get going now. Get going now, Baylor. Come on.
You got anything there? Iowa State, Arizona State, Jacob?
Not really.
Gotcha. Next one, we spent way too much time on this show last couple episodes talking about North Carolina, but I have to mention they got a 102-96 overtime win against Boston College. Why the fuck are you playing an overtime game at home with Boston College? They're bad. I'm tired of talking about them. They're not going to make the tournament. They're
They were
terrible.
favored by 19.5.
Yeah.
Like,
and they got
what are
taken
we
to overtime
doing?
by fucking Boston
What
College.
is wrong with you?
That's a
It's
joke.
time to be like starting up who the next Cincinnati coach is going to be when Wes Miller inevitably takes that job.
Yeah.
You'll be.
Oh.
We'll talk about that later. It'll probably be one more year for Hooper Davis at UNC and Wes Miller at Cincinnati. Next year, Cincinnati will be a force to be reckoned with, and then he'll go to UNC.
Yeah, that's oh man. Yeah, North Carolina's rough.
Mhm.
What was I gonna fucking say? I had a thought came to my head. Lost it. I don't know. But yeah, I mean if they do move on from him, it'll be interesting to see who they try to pluck away. Scott Drew's name is floating around the wire a
I
little bit
know.
more. So if that North
Mhm.
Carolina job comes out, North Carolina and Indiana have potential.
Mm.
I don't
Yeah.
think North Carolina's going to come open, but if
I
it
have
does,
I have an interesting name when we get into the discussion. Sort of.
we're in the discussion. Throw it out.
It's on now, yeah.
I think it's. I was talking with my dad about it. He saw something for new coach at Indiana, Chris Beard. Could be an interesting possibility for Indiana.
I mean, they don't.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
seems like they don't have too many morals with their coaches there.
Yeah.
no,
Go
not really.
from a school that's a football school at Ole Miss and go to a place that is going to fully support basketball.
Well, don't say that
Ole
around
Miss just
Sig.
gave him a pretty
Yeah.
nice extension, though.
Yeah.
So I
Do
don't
not
think he's
say
going
that
to be
around
pried away.
Sig. Sig
Yeah,
will be like, we're a football school.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
I don't know about that.
Ole
Well,
Miss
Sig
did
said
give him a pretty.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. My bad.
I was just going to point out that Signetti said that they beat the shit out of top 25 teams. So, or top 10 teams, rather.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, Sig.
Yeah. So, we've given that man too much airtime already.
But yeah, no, like I said, if North Carolina comes open and Indiana, Scott Drew is, like I said, he was floating around for Kentucky last year. It seems like it's like when you see a name keep coming up, it's like eventually somebody's gonna pick the guy off. And
Yeah,
that's
I wouldn't
kinda
be
how I
shocked.
feel with Scott Drew
Baylor's
at this
like
point.
in the tier below blue blood program right now, and I don't know if he thinks like he can't win another national championship there, but that's usually how the conversation works for leaving a job or taking another one. But yeah, that's going to be a tough one.
He'll leave and they'll bring the Tang Gang back to Baylor.
Well, the Tang Gang's got to survive Kansas State here first.
Yeah, I mean, he should have taken that Arkansas job. He missed the boat on that. Yeah, next one, I'll read it off. I gotta go piss real quick. But Texas 70, Texas A&M 69. Another game, just huge second half
This was
by
a
Texas.
crazy game. Yeah.
Trey Johnson was out of his fucking mind. Great second half. He's another one going to be a lottery. I remember your buddy said that the SEC has no one and done talent. Like Trey Johnson is
silly goof, man.
Yeah, he was out of his fucking mind in this game.
And
Texas is another team going to hang around the bubble, SEC bubble team. So they got these big opportunities. And that was a huge win for Texas to come back because Rodney's another coach that's really going to start feeling the heat.
Well, Rodney on the sideline was acting like he just saved his job when
he was going to go.
That game.
he doesn't have to go work at Los Pollos Hermanos now.
I'm gonna go
Yeah,
piss.
Yeah,
You guys can talk about that one and move on to another one if
Big-
you want. I'll be back in a minute.
big rivalry win for Rodney Terry. Texas needed that win for their NCAA tournament hopes because they've been not looking that great so far through SEC play. And Trey Johnson, or is it Trey Johnson?
Yeah, for Texas.
Trey Johnson. I was making sure I got the right name. He's up there in NBA mock drafts. Great game for him, and Gus Fring is happy after that one.
Yeah, he was over the moon. That's a epic choke job for A&M. Also, the win probability graph is kind of out of control for that game. I mean, and A&M had been playing pretty well.
Good ball.
That game was well in hand for them. And yeah, Texas between them catching fire and A&M just kind of choking it down the stretch. That was a tough one for them, but yeah, two coaches in that game. People complain about Dan Hurley, I understand, but I was like, my gosh, sometimes Ronnie Terry and Buzz Williams, I just want to hit them in the face. What in the world are we doing here?
I hate Buzz Williams with a passion.
I mean, great coach. He has overachieved expectations this year for what I thought that A&M team was going to be. But yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, man.
Buzz fucking last year against Tennessee running out to midcourt to call timeout. That'll always be one of my top Buzz moments. Just incredible. I mean, dude literally ran out to half. We might have shown this on the show back in March when we did our he ran out all the way out to half court, fucking waving his hands to call timeout. Incredible Buzz action. But yeah, anything else on Texas A&M Lone Star Showdown before we move on? Next one, nothing to really talk about here, but just notable result. We kind of already hit on it. Florida 89, Georgia 59. Florida beat the fuck out of Georgia. Florida's good. Georgia's trending towards the bubble. I don't really have anything to add on that. I don't know if you guys do.
Not really.
Imagine. All right, next one I see here. I know Jacob will want to talk about this one, so I will throw you the floor for ETSU Chattanooga. I will give us some runway for that because I know you were there and probably none too pleased with the outcome, I imagine. Did not know until you were telling us that that's a big rivalry there.
That is a big rivalry. It got chippy for a little bit there. There was a double T in the game. It was a packed Freedom Hall. Bucks started out, came out in the game looking like they were going to roll. They kind of just went to sleep towards the end of the first half, and that carried into the second half. Also, just terrible referee. It was a referee show in the second half. It seemed like you couldn't go 5 seconds without a foul being called. But ETSU just didn't have the good body language in the second half. It was honestly just disappointing. After that, there was a highlight dunk. Jaden Seymour had a highlight lob play. And from that point on in the game, ETSU just kind of fell asleep. Partially that, and there were some horrible calls as well. But mostly on just the not playing all that great. It's a sad to lose a rivalry game like that. But I did get a free pizza out of it for being the loudest fan. They came up my section. I'd had a couple beers, so I was like, screw it. I'll just go. Because I kind of got the sense of where the game was going, but I was still fired up. Even towards the end, it had just come off of a big 3 by Q. but yeah, just not a great game. Hopefully, we can bounce back against UNCG this week on Wednesday night, which might be a must win, at least for the regular season crown. Have
All
any
right.
shot at them.
I
That's
don't
all
know.
I gotta say.
Matt is tuned out for the ETSU talk. So we'll keep rolling. And
Mm-hmm.
when he comes back, he can chime in. But let's see, what are we talking about next? Scroll through here. Find. Oh, okay, here next one. Minnesota 77, Oregon 69. Knew that was going to be a sleepy game for Oregon there, with this Big Ten scheduling just
Mm-hmm.
being the grind that it is, and just a random road trip out to Minneapolis for them. I knew that was going to be a interesting one, and Minnesota's like they're at the bottom of the Big Ten, but they're a scrappy team. Like
I
they've been playing a lot better, and like I said, I figured that was going to be a pretty sleepy spot for Oregon, and Minnesota came in and took care of business in that one. So Oregon's a good team, but they kind of lack the I feel like the top end talent to be a true contender, and that'll probably cost them going forward in the Big Ten because I don't think they have the amount of talent that those other teams at the top of the Big Ten have. But yeah, good win for the Gophers. Dawson Garcia had a huge game in that
Mhm.
one.
Mhm.
Yeah, you guys got anything on that one?
I was gonna say I've never thought Minnesota was the worst team in the Big Ten. They have a decent amount of talent. They have had the past couple years. Ben Johnson's an okay coach, but I don't think they are one of the worst teams in the Big Ten. We saw that with them beating Michigan and now Oregon. I think they're more of a mid-level Big Ten team. Dawson Garcia played great. The barn is a pretty good environment when Minnesota can get can get the right players in place. It's an underrated environment. Very, very tough to go in there and win. I know Minnesota hasn't had the best basketball, but it's always been a tough place to play. So
I'm just
yeah.
gonna clip that and send it to William Luke. By the way, just to get him in a fucking tizzy. Like Ben Johnson's an okay coach. I'm just gonna clip that. What?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That was I figured that was gonna be a tough spot for Minnesota or for Oregon, I should say. Like I said, I don't know what the Big Ten's going to do going forward. I mean, they could think they chased the money in football, and now they fucked
The
it all
Big
up.
Ten, the ACC is like in a bigger hole probably than the Big. At least they're churning out big money. They're making
Yeah, I mean it's
Cal and
fucked
Stanford
because
gotta go cross country every other day.
it's fucking obviously it didn't affect Stanford too much, but
No, yeah,
yeah, I mean. Yeah, I mean, is it, like hey, you bring up the ACC, like for example, there's a spot earlier this week. Like, I bet hard on Stanford Wednesday night against Miami. Miami's
oh my
fucking
gosh, yeah.
horrendous, and like I
Miami
was like,
might be the worst program in the Power Five or Power Four
Miami's
rather.
going
Yeah,
across the country to fucking take on Stanford on a Wednesday night. I was like, this is not going to go well.
yeah,
And which, to Miami's credit, they went to overtime with Cal yesterday, so they figured
yeah.
something. I mean, they got the fucking shit beat out of them against Stanford on Wednesday. That was that was
Mhm.
one of those like I think the spread was 11. And I bet it was like within the
Yeah,
first
that's
3 minutes
easy.
of the
Yeah,
game. I was like,
congratulations, cash out. Yeah.
yeah. Anything else? Oregon, Minnesota before we move on there.
Mm-mm. I think I've
All right.
covered all I needed to say.
Duke 63, Wake Forest 56. We alluded to it earlier, but
Mm-hmm.
Wake would have been a huge win for Wake.
Mm-hmm.
I was buying into them, and they really need a big win for the resume. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
that UNC one's going to continue to not age well, and that was other than the non-conference win against Michigan. That was probably going to be their biggest win of the season to this point, and one they really could have used against Duke, but
Mm-hmm.
Duke took care of Wake made it a game late there,
Mm-hmm.
but Duke took care of business.
They
Cooper Flag put up 24, so
they outplayed them in the second half, but I mean, Duke kept them at arm's length, so it was kind of like Wake played a good game, but Duke just played a better game overall. So I mean, I think Wake should be a solid tourney team in my opinion, but
I don't think they're solid right now. I think they're a tournament team, but I don't think they have the wins to call them solid yet.
Yeah, they're probably not at that level. And Wake played a good game. Duke's just so much more talented than they are. Hunter Salas might be the only guy who gets minutes on that Duke team.
Jacob, who's Wake playing next weekend, by the way? Because I know you're going, when we go to Bowman Gray, you're going to the Wake game.
Pittsburgh.
Oh, that'll be a great game. All right. But yeah, Wake Duke, yeah, Cooper Flag with another big game. That's about all on that one. By the way, we did our fun money line dogs parlay we were joking about on Friday night. That went 0-3. So
Oh, nice.
hope nobody. We were like, fuck it, let's do a money line dog parlay. And I think Jacob took Rutgers, I took Wake, and William Luke took South Carolina. And none of those came to fruition.
Nice. Yeah, today was all right. Today just an easy 5-1 day. The lone loss being Wichita State getting beat as a road favorite, so that's fun.
My favorite, like, there's been a couple like easy spots to bet this year that I've mainly been focusing on. And like I needed to add real quick, these fucking like the Dakota teams, like every time they play, it's just over.
Over.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like,
every time.
Just set it and forget.
South Dakota over, North Dakota State over, South Dakota State over, North Dakota over.
Actually, the South Dakota State one did not hit. Actually, that one was too high in South Dakota.
Yeah, because I think it was like 171.
Yeah, 171.
I was like, this game needs to go to overtime. Yeah.
I had it, and then like the North Dakota State one, had to sweat that one out. That was a high one too. Had to sweat it out a little bit late, but I think it hit with like a minute left, so that was easy. That was an easy one. But yeah, that's been one of my like fade Doug, fade Miami, Dakota teams over, and like that's pretty much that's been like the top like bulletin board of the year for me.
Oh, what was it?
By the way. Sorry, I'll let you 1 second, Jake. Like I said, the fade dog thing. I don't know if you had that one yesterday. That was a fucking grind to cover that one. I had Cleveland State minus 14, and it was. I think it was a 2-point game at halftime, which isn't saying a lot for Doug, but it was only like an 8-point game with like 2 minutes left, and I was like, "Fuck, this one isn't gonna hit." And just some absolutely hilarious possessions late for Cleveland State, but they won by 15. They ended up cutting. Yeah. I know there's some different lines in different places. I had it at 14, so I was able to get what I needed out of that one. But it also fucking Doug checking the rims after the game.
The jokes write themselves. Yeah.
What were you about to say before I said that, Jacob? I'm sorry.
I was saying you were talking about the Dakota teams scoring a bunch of points. I was thinking about that Denver South Dakota game where it was in double overtime and it was 111 to 110. Shout out Tommy Brunner for Denver having 49 points last year.
Kansas City's like the only team in that conference that like it's always so funny because it's like this whole conference is just like all offense, and then Kansas City is just like taking teams into the fucking mud. Like
the Roos are doing their best.
Yeah, they're like the one exception there. But yeah, all right. Next game, we're at hour 43. Okay, I can get this done before 2 hours. That's going to be the goal. So we got like about 15 minutes left, if that. I think we can finish up here. But yeah, Missouri 83, Ole Miss 75. Big win for Mizzou. Like I said earlier, it's like Dennis Gates. Like they had a winless conference slate last year after a good season in 2022 for them, and a lot of people thought his job was in jeopardy. Like he was going to get Bryce Drude for the year from hell, and they held on to him, and that seems to be paying off for Mizzou because they're a good team, man. They're like, it goes to show in the SEC. Like I said, Ole Miss they were good to go, beat Bama, and now they've turned around and lost 3 in a row, and seems like the sky's kind of falling there. So
Mm-hmm.
things have gone south quick for Ole Miss. You got to bring your A game in the SEC, and good home win for Mizzou. You guys got anything on that one?
I love Dennis Gates as a coach. I will say that. I really liked the team like 2 years ago. Had some big guards. He seems to have that rhythm back this year. So
Yeah, they've been a fun team.
Mhm.
They not sure if they're a second weekend caliber team, but they could definitely win an NCAA tournament game and give a higher seed a good run. But yeah, they're a fun team. I had my reservations and questions about Dennis Gates when he took that Missouri job, but give him credit. He's done a good job this year in the best league in the country.
All right, I'm scrolling through to find the next one. Had to refresh the page. Like I said, I think we're about through here. I
Mhm.
think we hit all, but I'm gonna skim it to the bottom to make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah, Matt, you mentioned Baylor. The Bears are on fire. Uh,
The Bears are
sorry.
on a roll, pal.
Yeah, I'm terrified. Let's see.
We'll have to get your phone for his comments.
Oh yeah,
The
dude.
Bears
I was
continue
thinking
winning.
that we do have to get him in here one time and just have an
Oh yeah,
absolute fucking
I'll get
shit
him in here.
fest.
Don't worry. Oh yeah, he'll talk his shit. Don't worry.
Maybe we can get him on for like a bracket show.
Yeah,
He's
he
like,
would.
my
Yeah,
final four is Baylor, Kansas, Alabama. Like
he will have Bama in the Final Four. That's a guarantee.
100%.
He will have UConn, Marquette, and pretty much any Big East team out in the first weekend.
Auburn's gonna be losing to like some team out
Auburn
of
will get
EAC or
beat.
something.
Yeah,
Like
Auburn's gonna get trounced by Texas Southern.
Colgate.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, I saw. I think it was Southern University versus Colgate was the last projection I saw for Auburn in the first
jeez.
round. So we're done. But all right. Kansas State 73, West Virginia 60. Not much to say there other than man, it's gone south quick for West Virginia. I was like the
Not
Super
good.
Bowl
Yeah,
term gets thrown around a lot, but it does appear that Iowa
it
State game
reeks
is
of
their
that.
Super
Yeah,
Bowl. Yeah, that was a tough one, and I mean, good win for Tang because, like I said, things are getting kind of hairy there. So I'm sure he needed a big one to get people off his ass for 5 minutes. So I assume that one will do that, but yeah, that's a tough. West Virginia was a quick in and out top 25 appearance, and now I don't know. Are they still going to be a tournament team by the time we get to March? I don't know if that's going to be the case.
probably
So
not.
we'll see.
Not at this rate.
Uh, let's see. We're getting towards the end of the night. Gonzaga won by 100. St. Mary's they didn't absolutely fucking stomp teeth in like they've been doing teams this time, but they went on the road in Pullman and got a win. We talked about UConn Xavier. Arkansas lost, so yeah, Cal. Speaking of Super Bowls, it seems like getting that one win was his Super Bowl because they turn around at home and drop the
Yeah,
ball against Oklahoma. So, like I said, there's some Arkansas and North Carolina mainly. I don't want to waste any more time discussing that. They're not worth my time anymore. Uh, I think that's about it. My God, BYU,
So
Cincinnati. That was thrashing. And then
mhm.
today, well, you mentioned the Maryland, Indiana
Mhm.
earlier, but yeah, tough loss for Indy. We talked on Friday. I think Indiana like has a legit shot to just lose out the rest of their Big 12 slate
Mhm.
because it is or Big 10
Big
slate
Ten.
because it is brutal.
I don't
Hopefully,
think Indiana fans would mind that. Really,
Yeah, honestly.
I,
if it means I'm
I,
getting a new coach, I don't think they'll care.
interesting note on this Friday. The Purdue and Indiana are tied for 10th most wins all time. Um, and if Purdue wins, they break that tie. I feel like it's going to be an absolute thrashing like it was against Michigan this past Friday.
And then
Mackey's going to be on fire, I bet.
we shall see. But today, yeah, that one, that was the only real great game to watch today. But yeah, Maryland got that one done, and then let's see, Wisconsin thrashed Nebraska.
Yeah,
Nebraska's
that was
falling
never
off the
really
wagon.
competitive. Yeah.
Nebraska's looking like they may be the second worst team in the Big Ten at this point.
Memphis put 100 on UAB, so good win for them. And then Illinois. Oh, I didn't realize I was watching a little bit of that one. I didn't realize Northwestern kind of came back and made a little bit of a game out of it.
I know
83-74 there.
Who was it? There's one. Illinois center was out with mono for that game too.
Interesting.
Avicic.
Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
Shout out. And then Texas Tech. They took care of business at home, 64-54 over Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's bad, so nothing to really talk about there. And then last one to mention, Army-Navy. Navy gets a 66-50. Just wanted to mention that because I had a hilarious tweet earlier I saw where it said just walking around Philly looking for a bar showing Army-Navy at 3:30 while the NFC Championship game was going on. So thought that was good.
Shout out former ETSU head coach Ed DeChillis. Now the head coach at Navy.
Shout out to the troops. The midshipmen took care of business. So
Air Force did not take care of business.
No.
Holy smokes, yeah.
I think, what was it? And I actually liked Air Force in that one. I think Air Force was catching 17 or something like that going into that game, and I kind of liked them. And I think they lost by 49 or 30. No, it was 89-50, I think was the final there.
I got to recheck, but that was, not good.
Air Force did not represent the troops well this weekend. But Navy did. So the Patriot League, man. What kills me about the Patriot League is that every single game you look at, it does not matter who the fuck is playing. The spread's going to be 1.5 across the board. The Patriot League's playing, the spread's 1.5.
Yeah, that league for every sport is just they are competitive with each other for everything, but their non-conference is shocking. Just across the board, that is not a good league. They are they have been flirting in the past with somewhere between 13 and 14 seeds. They are probably on their way to 15 or 16, maybe even the Dayton, depending on who the team is. So
the Patriot League champions punching their ticket to Dayton.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's not been one of their better years.
Colgate is they lost yesterday. I know Colgate usually runs that. They lost to American.
Yeah. I'm rooting for Army to finally get their first ever NCAA tournament berth.
That would be fun. We need the troops represented in the madness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very much so.
All right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything else to add on the weekend. We're almost 2 hours. Good show. Feel like we hit everything we needed to. You guys got anything else before we call it a show? Oh, and also, I'm not going to give anything away. I'm not going to put the cart before the horse, but discussions are happening. We got some big names potentially coming on here in a couple weeks. I'm fucking hyped. It came together yesterday. It's currently coming together, so if it becomes a reality, it's going to be fucking fun. That's all I got to say. So keep your eyes out the next couple weeks. If you're 43 people tuning in.
Stay tuned. Mick Cronin's going to get drilled. Yeah, just get ready when he comes on. Yeah.
Yeah. UConn circle jerk may or may not happen, but
yeah.
You guys got anything else, or are we good?
I think we're good for tonight. I think we've pretty much covered them this weekend ad nauseum.
All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Make sure Sectator Media, YouTube, subscribe, retweet this. It's on the Left Turn Cold account. Also, Cody set up today. One Shining Recap Show on Twitter. We have our own account now. I went through and followed you guys and started to get that going. So please go through One Shining Recap Show Twitter so eventually we can start to move content from like my Twitter and Left Turn Colt over there. That's the ultimate goal eventually. So check it out. And yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it. 43 people are here at what are we at? 12:01 a.m. 43 people are here watching us talk about the Patriot League. So thank you guys. And y'all have a good one.
Have a good night, everybody.